Hello, my name is Jason Lawson. I teach in the occupational therapy department here at the University of Mary. Today I'm going to talk about the significance of teamwork, the value of group work, and why faculty use it to facilitate your learning. I also hope I can provide some strategies to optimize your group work and teamwork experiences here. We've all heard the saying, there's no I in team, because team isn't about us individually, it's more about the group. And so as we look at the definition, teamwork is the collaborative effort of a group to achieve a common goal or to complete a task in the most effective and efficient way. And so a team is a group of interdependent individuals who work together towards that common good or towards that common goal. When we're all parts of groups, we can be more task-oriented or we can be more emotional-oriented. I think of the different groups I've been involved in my career, and I can think of times when I've been more task-oriented, and I can think of times when I've been more emotional-oriented. So I think it really depends on what type of group that we're in, as well as many other different factors. A task-oriented individual may be more concerned about getting things done, right? They may be focused on making decisions for the group, making sure the group is making those right decisions, moving the group along, involved with planning, planning meetings, when do things need to get done, when do things need to get turned in. They may seem highly organized and highly motivated. Emotional-oriented people tend to be more focused on group cohesion of the team, maybe concerned about everybody's feelings, maybe concerned about making sure everybody's voices are heard and offer more emotional support to the group, which can be really nice and helpful. Teamwork is especially important in healthcare because we're all working towards that common goal, right? To care for our patients, to care for our clients. We all are interdependent, meaning that we all may be doing our own thing, or we may be looking at a particular piece of a puzzle when we're working with a client or a patient. However, we are working towards that common goal for that patient, to help them get better, to help them have less pain, to help them increase function. OT is especially important when we look at teamwork and group work. I think of my experiences as an OT, and I can't think of a time when I didn't work in a group or I didn't work with a team when it came to patient care. There was a physician to communicate with. There was a parent to communicate with. There was a PT, another OT assistant to communicate with, a speech language pathologist. And so there always was somebody that we had to communicate with, that we had to collaborate with in my whole experience. And so when I look at teamwork and when I think of teamwork, I think of how important that is, that skill to have to work in a team as an OT. Here's a particular article that I found that talks about the importance of interprofessional collaboration, and that's taken right from our American Occupational Therapy Association. You can click on the link and you can read it. It does give some tips for being successful with interprofessional collaboration, meaning how do we collaborate with other professionals as an OT, the importance of it. And you'll see some common threads from that article that are woven throughout the rest of this presentation as well. But again, it's a nice resource taken from our professional association that again justifies the need and the importance, the significance of teamwork as an OT. So what are the benefits of teamwork? Also, what is the purpose of group work in our curriculum? So the benefits of teamwork in general are increasing quality and quantity. So generally speaking, when we're looking at learning concepts, putting together ideas, two heads are better than one, right? Maybe somebody forgot a detail, that other person maybe remembers that detail. And so really when we're collaborating with each other and we're sharing our thoughts, our opinions, our rationale for things, we become more attuned, or we become, we have higher quality. When we all have a voice and when we are all sharing in a team, we all have that commitment to achievement. And so we're all driven as professionals. We want the highest quality of work. We want to produce a high amount of, or a high quantity of work. And so typically that leads to greater quality and greater quantity of our work as well when we're able to work in a team or do group work. With the aspect of group work also, it typically means that we can divide and conquer, meaning we can cover more ground more quickly, right? We might be able to look at a particular assignment and we might be able to assign or delegate various aspects of that assignment based on team or group strengths, group member strengths, okay? And so typically we can cover a lot more ground in our curriculum by assigning group work as opposed to individual work. Group work has been shown to increase, and this is in the workplace, has been shown to increase productivity and satisfaction of workers. When we work in groups and when we have different teams, we all have to participate, right? And so when we're all participating towards that common good, we boost our productivity. When we all feel we have a voice, when we all feel the quality of our work is really good, that leads to greater satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment. Hey, we did this together. When working in a team or a group, we also take on different leadership roles. And again, in healthcare, being a leader is really useful. It's really helpful. We need to be leaders for our profession, for our clients. And so again, being on a team and working in a group can enhance productivity and feelings of overall satisfaction. The benefit of group work when you're looking at learning is students tend to retain information longer when they're working in groups, when they're having to not just memorize content, but they're having to explain that content to a peer. Explaining that content to a peer is actually a higher level of learning. So we tend to retain things longer when we're teaching things or when we're explaining things. It also enhances our communication and our problem-solving ability. So when we have to explain our rationale, when we have to talk through a problem, when we're asking a peer to explain something that maybe we don't understand, they're having to problem solve a different way on how to communicate that. And so teamwork and working in groups really enhances communication and our problem solving skills. It also, when we're talking through different problems or when we're working with other people, it really expands our knowledge and perhaps gives us a different point of view, maybe a point of view that we didn't quite think of. And so it really provides an opportunity to expand our knowledge and again, enlighten us with different points of view. I know I tend to teach in the earlier parts of the OT curriculum. And I do use group work. Particularly, I'm thinking of a theory course where I use group work. theory is really trying to we increase our knowledge with theory by understanding the language of our profession, right? So it's a lot of explaining definitions. And I don't want students just to regurgitate the different definitions. I want them to be able to communicate those thoughts of that theory and apply them to different concepts, more realistic concepts. And so by doing that, I often have group work so that we're expanding our knowledge. We're getting different points of view. Hey, how do you understand this concept? This is how I understand this concept. Now let's apply it to this one scenario, and let's see if we can't expand or build on our knowledge and retain it for future use throughout the curriculum. So those earlier courses in the curriculum where I teach, I do use a lot of group work in an effort to retain that for you to retain that information longer so that it can be implemented throughout your time in the curriculum. Now, when I look at some of these things and being a faculty for several years now and using group work as a method of learning, when I look at it, it does provide opportunity for conflict, okay? And when I look at these different benefits or purpose of group work, right, we sometimes, and I'll get into conflict here a little bit more, but some of the things I made note of is commitment to achievement, right? Some people, some students tend to be really high, really place emphasis on high achievement, okay? I want an A. And then we have some students who are, I don't really necessarily care about the grade. And so they may not necessarily be as committed to achievement. And so right there, we may have some personality conflict. When we're looking at productivity and we're looking at level of participation, right, we may have some students who are really active and outgoing, right? And so they're going to be really busy and have that high level of participation, where we may have some more reserved students who aren't necessarily opposed to participating, but they may need longer time to sort of spend time with some information or process some of that information. And so again, difference in personalities can create that conflict. I look at communication under learning and creativity, enhancing communication. Communication is something we all continue to work on throughout our entire lives. There are times when I feel like I can effectively communicate, and there are times when I think to myself, I did not communicate that as well, or I didn't communicate my expectations as I had hoped. And so there are different communication styles, which may pose issues with conflict. And sometimes we just might not be further along with our communication skills, which may also lead to some overall conflict, or which may lead to maybe some hurt feelings. And so we'll explore some of these different conflicts here coming up. So how we understand conflict, I talked a little bit about personality and personality styles and those sorts of things. I also talked about people in groups or teams tend to be more emotional oriented, which on this chart on the left would be more relationship. So again, the relationship is going to be more emotional oriented people. And then on the bottom, we have goal, which would be task-oriented people. And so you can see here, there are different definitions. There's different animals to sort of help us understand what those definitions are. So we have on the top, when we're looking at relationships or those emotional oriented people, they're going to hold that relationship between group members as very important. Okay, so feelings are very important to them. They may not necessarily be as goal oriented because they're more about socializing. They're more about making sure everybody's voice is heard, or, oh, I can't wait to spend time with you. Let's get this together, or let's get together. Let's do this. Let's hang out, right? And so they're going to be like the teddy bears of the group. Okay, they're going to be really accommodating. Yeah, sure, whatever you want, as long as everybody's happy. Okay, they're going to be the people pleasers of the group. When we look down at, let's see here, let's move over to the owl. And so the owl holds relationships as very important, but they also hold the task as very important. And so they're going to be really involved with collaborating with each other, right? So they're going to be able to assess the emotions of the group, and they're also going to be the ones that are willing to move the group forward. So you can see here that the task is very important to them, and the relationship of the group is very important to them. So I think the owl is wise. Okay. Let's go down to the bottom left. We may have the turtle. And so there, the relationship isn't necessarily important, and maybe the goal or the task isn't necessarily important. Now, I can think of times when perhaps I've been the turtle, and I say that meaning that it's not necessarily that I felt the task was not important, just with the group dynamics of the group. Maybe I wasn't as confident, right? And so I held back. I was quiet, and I tended to avoid jumping right in right away because I kind of wanted to hear what other people were thinking. Maybe I didn't know as much, or I felt like I didn't know as much as the other group members, and that was intimidating to me. And so I didn't necessarily put that much importance on the relationships or the feelings of the group, right? And I didn't feel like I had the knowledge to move the task forward. So I sort of sat back and soaked things in a little bit. When we have the shark, so that's the task is very important and the relationships are not important, they tend to want to get things done, right? They will bulldoze over the other group members to get the task done. They will sort of forget to communicate with other people in the group who are maybe more accommodating because they think, I'm just going to get this done. That person doesn't seem like they care, so I'm just going to get it done to get it done. Okay. And then we have in the middle the fox, who's more compromising. So they can sort of float in the middle. Their relationships, sometimes they're important, sometimes they're not as important. They're sort of in the middle, kind of floating along with the group. They can float back and forth between the task also. So again, they're more of compromising. Where do they need to be? Do they need to step up and be more task-oriented people? Do they need to step up and take a look at that, relationship? So certainly, there are opportunities for conflict when you work in a team. Some overall very general tips and strategies are to spend time organizing thoughts and emotions, okay? So if somebody tells you something, I'm thinking of a shark, right? They come across and they say something where they're very task-oriented and they may be very blunt, and something may come out stronger than what they had anticipated. And then you have somebody who is very emotional oriented, and they may think, oh my gosh, that shark said this because they don't like me, or because they think this of me. Okay. Well, take a moment and organize your thoughts and your emotions. Don't just snap back at the shark and say, yeah, but, or I don't like that. Take a moment and reflect on maybe where that person is coming from, and just maybe acknowledge, you know what, I'm not going to take this personally. Maybe they're just more of a task-oriented person for this particular team, and maybe I'm just more emotional oriented. So I think of, we rely so much on email communication, and sometimes things in written format come across a little bit more blunt, a little bit more rough around the edges. And so instead of firing another email back that matches that bluntness, right? Let's organize our thoughts and our emotions. Hey, something about that email or something about that statement rubbed me wrong. I wonder what it was. I wonder how I can organize my thoughts about this before I respond. Okay. Avoid criticizing what cannot be changed. And so when working with a team, working with a group, we're all human beings, right? You're all students, you're all learning. Somebody might make a mistake. And so instead of saying, hey, turtle, you made a mistake, right? And criticizing them for what that mistake is. Hey, you know what? Let's all work together and let's try and move past this and make it better, right? So let's not try and single out the turtle, but maybe and avoid criticizing what can't be changed, right? Maybe somebody misses a meeting or something like that, right? And so instead of saying, oh, that person you don't care because you missed that meeting, right? Try and avoid criticizing, again, what can't be changed. Just try and move forward. A really good strategy when understanding conflict or when having general tips, and this kind of goes along with thoughts and emotions, is using I statements. So if I'm a teddy bear, right, and there are times in groups when I can recognize that I was a teddy bear where I was very accommodating, more so accommodating, maybe again because I didn't feel like I had as much knowledge as somebody else, or somebody had way more experience than I did, and so I was looking at more of the group dynamics and how people were feeling. If somebody like the shark came out and said, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, this is why we're going to do it, if you're not on board, then get the heck out, right? And so I might be rubbed wrong in that sense, and have some hurt feelings. And so I might use an I statement to talk to that shark and say, I feel undervalued and unheard when you tell people to do your way or not be part of the group. Okay, and so by stating that or using that I statement, I feel, you're not necessarily pointing your finger at the shark and making them feel defensive. You're taking responsibility for your own thoughts, your own feelings, right? And then maybe enlightening that other person as to what they did that makes you feel that way. And then that opens up the opportunity for you to move forward. There are students that I've worked with that have had issues with group work in the past, and using I feel statements or I statements tend to be helpful. And what ends up happening is the person on the receiving end of that I statement or I feel statement doesn't necessarily understand or didn't recognize that they're coming across that way. Okay, and so that can be really enlightening for them, and help them learn to perhaps understand how they're coming across with their overall impressions of other people. Okay, and so understanding conflict, I think, understanding where you're at in each group, having some general tips can be really helpful in navigating group work and teamwork, and enhance our overall ability to work in a team. So conflict doesn't have to be bad. I would say in working with students over the years, the biggest conflicts that we've seen with students is scheduling issues. Okay, people are very busy. Many students are working or not working full time. Hopefully, you're not working full time, but you're working. You're going to school. You may have families. You may have other obligations. You may have lots of other things going on. You may have health issues. Your parents may have health issues. You may have pet issues. And so the most common conflict we have, I think, comes down to scheduling time to work together. I would say the easiest resolution to have would be to get together sooner than later. So when you get that group assignment, get together and establish common meeting times right away. Okay, there are times in your OT schedule, right, that maybe it's over lunch. So maybe you all decide, hey, we're going to meet every Monday at this time. Let's all bring a lunch, okay, and let's start sooner than later. Let's start right away versus waiting until a week before the assignment's due. Also, go into group work understanding that you may need to be flexible, okay? I've had students who have every excuse in the book why they can't meet during lunchtime, why they can't meet at this time, why they can't meet at that time. Maybe it's a doctor's appointment that can easily be rescheduled to another time. Okay, so if you're the only one in the group that's having issues, maybe there's something you can do to be more flexible. Maybe there's something you can reschedule. And again, we do need to be flexible. Now, that flexibility can also be being flexible with your ability to communicate or your ability to meet, right? Maybe it is allowing a meeting, maybe somebody FaceTimes in with another student, right? And then that other student is live, right? Or meeting as a group. Maybe you all do a Zoom meeting, or maybe you all do a Microsoft Teams meeting, something along those lines. Maybe you do a group text. This kind of goes down into communication styles and preferences. And so when you do meet, right, and you do figure out how you're going to communicate, establish the line of communication, okay? We saw that we all have different styles and preferences, maybe for our different personality styles even. And we all communicate differently depending on what group we're in or based on group dynamics. And so I remember having some students saying, well, I missed this meeting because everybody was group texting me, but I lost my phone, okay? Or my phone was broken. And so, if you didn't hear from a team member, right, go talk to them and say, hey, didn't hear from you, right? Don't just move forward without them. Make sure you're establishing that line of communication. That's being respectful, okay? Also, be assertive, okay? And so being assertive doesn't mean being aggressive. It doesn't mean always being passive. But maybe it is, using those I feel statements. Hey, I noticed you guys met without me. I feel like I'm not being given an opportunity to be an active group member because you guys continue to meet without me. Okay, is there something we can do to get on the same page and relook at our schedules so that I'm not missed? as part of the team. Okay. I think and I'm going back to scheduling issues here, something that I find helpful, or that I found helpful, and I know students have used in the past, is sending out a doodle poll. And so this is, somebody can go online, create a doodle poll, and I have a reference for that at the end of this PowerPoint, where you can go and you can email everybody common times that might work. And then people can plug in their preferences for that doodle poll, and then it will output a common time when you all can meet. And so it can be really helpful in trying to navigate many different schedules. Going to, or having different expectations, okay? Some students tend to be really worried about their grade. I want an A, right? I want 100%, I wanna be perfect. Whereas some students might not have that expectation. And so I think that in an effort to resolve those different expectations, I think communication is best, right? Let's communicate. What is the common goal? What do you want to achieve? Maybe compromise, right? So, hey, you know what? I have to get 100%, or I get really anxious. And you might have a student that goes, you know, I'm okay with a B as long as I learn, right? I'm all about getting feedback and learning from that feedback. And so I think it's helpful then to say, hey, you know, so we have different expectations going into this assignment. So let's compromise, right? How can we compromise? Let's maybe delegate some of the tasks ahead of time. So we need to do, you know, 4 parts to this assignment. There are 4 people. So let's delegate ahead of time that I'm going to do this role, you're going to do that role. Okay, is everybody in agreement of that? All right, everybody's in agreement. So that means that everybody feels like this is an equal opportunity to contribute to the group. How about we revisit, okay, and we reassess how those roles are going in a week. Okay, so perfect. Okay, so by discussing and communicating what tasks each person is responsible for right from the get-go, you're sort of compromising on those different tasks and roles. So it's not uncommon also for students to maybe feel like they did the most work in a group, and for them to have sort of bad feelings about that, right? And so by checking in with each other, and this kind of goes onto other conflicts here, but by making sure you're all communicating and on the same page, and you recheck in with each other regularly and communicate, that can help with any of those feelings that may come up where you're thinking, hey, you know what, task 1, as I'm working on it, is really heavy. Is anybody feeling like they have a little bit more time to spare and they'd be willing to help me out with this a little bit more? Okay, that's okay. That's okay to do that. It's a lot better to do that as opposed to looking back after the assignment and saying, well, I did the most work, right? And then you're resentful to your peers who maybe got the same grade or a similar grade as you. That leads to maybe lack of preparation from other team members. And so this is where somebody does schedule a meeting with the group, and maybe somebody comes to that meeting and they don't have their task done, right? They're not ready to meet. They didn't prepare. And so that can lead to some rather frustrating feelings. And again, I think I go back to those general tips of conflict, meaning don't criticize something that can't be changed, right? And so it's unfortunate that person didn't prepare, but hold each other accountable, right? And say, well, that's unfortunate. You didn't get that part done, right? Can we reschedule the meeting then? When do you think that you will get it done, right? And to hold each other accountable and say, okay, you need a couple days to get that done. All right, let's touch base then in a couple days when you've been able to complete your part. Or maybe it's, when you're done with your part, send a group email with your part so that we all can take a look at it and put everybody's pieces together. Okay, so again, hold each other accountable, touch base. Maybe it's a group text, maybe it's a group email, but to meet frequently, right? That way you're not, oh, the assignment's due tomorrow and so didn't do their part, right? So you're touching base before that happens. Another conflict, I think, is fear of addressing conflict. And so you might have people on your team who like to avoid conflict like the plague, right? I'll be honest, I'm one of those people. I hate conflict. And so I've had students that have come to me and have said, hey, so-and-so's not doing their part. I feel like I'm doing most of the work and I don't know how to handle that. And so, take a look at some of these strategies. I feel statements, right? I feel like I'm doing most of the work. And this is addressing that person directly, right? I feel like I'm doing most of the work here. Is there other opportunity, or is there an opportunity where we can meet and sort of redelegate or realign some of the tasks? Maybe we can set some deadlines, right? So that we're able to make sure we're getting this done ahead of time and we can all work together then to make sure we have a quality product. So again, that kind of goes along the lines of holding each other accountable, meeting frequently, and touching base. So it's not uncommon when a student comes to me and says, hey, I'm really struggling in this group. I've reached out to them and they haven't responded back. Okay, and so there's been a lot of that, I think, when we are communicating via email a lot. And so my first suggestion is, have you tried talking to them in person? Have you tried giving them a call? Do you know somebody that person hangs out with? And can you ask that person then to say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of that person? Okay, and so what I'm looking for is, or my suggestions to students are going to be to address that conflict by approaching that person, using I feel statements, touching base frequently, talking about different expectations that you may have on that assignment, and communication styles, talking about when to schedule or if there are scheduling issues and problem solving that. So how do we enhance our teamwork, right? We all can benefit from enhancing teamwork in our group work. Defining roles and responsibilities. So just making sure you're delegating any roles, responsibilities, and that everyone agrees to the workload, okay? Use team meetings to reassess and to reassign. I teach a research course, and it's a pretty heavy course where there's writing, reading articles, writing literature reviews, all of those things. And I specifically have group work participation rubrics where I have each group sort of delegate. So I have them create a schedule where they all can meet regularly. And then they all sign it saying they're all willing to meet during those times. I have them delegate any particular parts of the writing or responsibilities that they're all going to work on. and everybody signs that like it's a contract. Okay. Then I have them meet about halfway through the semester to identify, is the workload still evenly split? Do things need to be reassessed, re-administered? Is everybody meeting each other's expectations? If not, what can be done to enhance those expectations or to communicate those expectations? And so very strategic places in that course where I'm having you define roles, responsibilities, and to assess that workload throughout, because I don't want anybody feeling like they're doing all of the work and some people aren't doing any of the work. When we are defining roles, responsibilities, delegating, it's really important that we're establishing trust and we're giving some autonomy to our group members, okay? As I've mentioned, and I think of the shark character, right, where they're so into getting the task done that they sort of overpower maybe the students who are more of the teddy bears, or maybe even the foxes, or maybe even the turtles, right? Heck, the shark may even make a teddy bear a turtle, okay? Just because of the different personalities and such. And so it's really important for that shark to give up some of that control, okay? You don't want to be a shark. You don't want to bulldoze over other people. You want people to be part of the team, okay? You may think that you're smarter than everybody else on that team, okay? And maybe you are, but that's not a good team member, right? And part of this, part of having group work is to help those students who don't give up that control. They are forced to give up that control and establish trust and give autonomy to some of those other group members. Somebody's not pulling their weight, give them more autonomy and hold them accountable, okay? Now, it's easier to give up some of that control if we trust, okay? And again, if somebody isn't pulling their weight, they're showing up to meetings late, they're gonna ruin that trust. They're gonna break that trust. And so it's sort of twofold, right? If you're the turtle and you're missing meetings and you're not task oriented and you're really super quiet and introverted, okay, you're going to have to push yourself to be a little more extroverted, okay? And the shark is going to have to push themselves to take that into consideration and help facilitate that. So take time to get to know one another, right? It's a lot easier to work together if we know each other, we know what our similarities are, maybe having lunch together, or a snack together, or taking a little walk together to get to know each other. I know it's awkward, but I tell you what, the people I work with the most effectively are the people that I have those personal relationships with. But those personal relationships did not come immediately. We both had to work on them, okay? Clear and frequent communication. So make sure you're communicating with everyone in the group frequently and following up on roles. So I've talked a little bit about maybe a student wasn't included in a group text, or they didn't get a group text, right? Because of something happened to their phone, or maybe they forgot to check their email or something like that. Hold each other accountable and say, hey, I sent you an email, right? You're all in class together. Even if you're in a distance site, you have classes together occasionally. Before class, when the class is connected, say, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. Did you get my email? Right? And just sort of wave. I know it's awkward, but you're communicating, right? and you're following up saying, hey, did you get my communication? Just expect that you're going to be getting and receiving feedback, right? Not just from faculty, but from each other. Again, that getting feedback helps us all grow, okay? Utilizing team meetings wisely. So when you do have meetings scheduled, have objectives or an agenda for your meeting, okay? So that means, all right, team, I'm gonna have part 1 done, you're gonna have part 2 done, she's gonna have part 3 done of this assignment, and we're gonna meet in 1 week from now, and we'll each bring our lunch, okay? And we'll talk about each of the things, and we'll review each of our parts and put it all together, okay? So that's what we're gonna do during this meeting, okay? But then you make sure that you come prepared for your meeting, or you communicate ahead of time with your group to make sure that you're not, or if you're not prepared, if something comes up, right? Hey, can we reschedule that meeting for later in the afternoon, or can we reschedule that meeting a day later? Because I had, I became sick and I wasn't able to do something, okay? And so again, make sure you're coming prepared. If you can't come prepared, make sure you're communicating ahead of time. Your group members are gonna respect you a lot more than that, and you won't break that trust. Remember, working in groups is also trying to increase your perspective on different concepts. And so when you go into group work, embrace the diverse perspectives. Be respectful of the different viewpoints. What if somebody's viewpoint is wrong? I've had students say that to me before too. Well, I have a really hard time trusting my peers because I know how much work I put into my readings. I know how much work I put into my assignments. I really want the A, and I don't know if I can give that control or that trust over to group members. And so I want to do all of the work myself. Okay, well, you know what, honey? We don't always work by ourselves as OTs, right? Remember that first slide? We work as group members and as members of the healthcare team every single day. So we're going to have to give up some of that control, and we're going to have to be respectful of those different viewpoints. We're going to have to be respectful of those different personality styles as well. Now, if we know what our personality style is ourselves, step outside of your comfort zone and work on that. Okay, I think I've heard students say, I'm introverted, I don't do well in groups. Well, you know what? Work on it then, right? This is opportunity for you to practice and to embrace it and to work outside your comfort zone, because in the real world, as an OT, you will work outside your comfort zone, okay? And so get used to that now. I remember when I was in a research group way back when, right? And I remember feeling just so frustrated because everything that I put together, right, when we delegated tasks, everything I put together was not adopted by the group. And I thought, oh my gosh, these people hate me. They must think I'm not smart. They're not ever accepting anything. It's like I'm doing work for nothing. Okay, try not to take that personally. Again, it's for the greater good and the quality of the work. I still have that piece of work that we did together. And when I reflect back and when I look back on that piece of work, I think, wow, that piece of work is a whole lot better than what I would have done by myself. Okay, and I can recognize that now. So try and be flexible with that. And if conflict occurs, conflict is going to occur. It always does occur. It occurs every year. There's always a group where conflict occurs. Okay, come up with strategies as a group to help. That might mean looking back and saying, okay, I feel like we have a couple sharks in the group, and I feel like we have a couple teddy bears, and I feel like there may be a couple turtles. And these personalities may not necessarily be working as effectively and as efficiently together. So what can we do as a group to help this along? Do we need to schedule more meetings? Do we need to be more autonomous and check in via email? What are some strategies that we can do as a group to help the group? Okay, and so as a faculty, I expect that you guys are looking at some of these issues or some of these potentials for conflict. You're calling conflict out, you're addressing them directly. And then, of course, if you are trying to do some of these things and you're still having issues, don't be afraid to talk to your faculty. But your faculty are going to want to know, what conflict resolution strategies have you had? Have you implemented? Have you addressed the person directly yet? How frequently do you communicate? How have you communicated? Okay, I've had students say, well, I've only ever talked to them via email. Well, try calling them. It's a lot different when you talk to somebody face to face. Okay, and so we typically don't treat patients or clients via email, right? We treat them, we read their body language, they read our body language, we pick up on those social cues, and so capitalize on that. It's a lot easier, right? If I get an email from somebody, perhaps a student who's upset about a grade or something like that, and I read that email and my impression is they're trying to argue with me, or I made them angry, they're clearly angry in this email. Well, I'm going to organize my thoughts. I'm not going to respond right away because I'm feeling attacked or I'm feeling defensive. Okay. And then I might, once I get my thoughts and my feelings organized, I might send an email back. Or if I have that student in class and they're sitting there before class or after class, I might say, hey, can you come to my office and talk to me in person? Okay, or I might send them an email and say, I'd like to visit with you in person. Okay, because things are a lot different when you visit in person versus via email. Okay, so again, these are just some hopefully some general tips and some strategies to help you be effective team members. Hopefully this gives you some expectation as far as what we expect as faculty, as far as your group work assignments, those sorts of things, and maybe gives you a little bit better understanding of, hey, this group work isn't just to get this assignment done, but it's to help us build communication skills. It's to give us different perspective. It's to make us practice explaining our rationale to peers. It's pushing us to be flexible. All of these skills are needed to be successful OTs, and that's why we're here. And so here are some general resources. Some of the resources I used in my PowerPoint slide here, but just overall improving teamwork, the benefits of teamwork, doodle polls. Again, this is going to be a helpful link for you to get that, to make the scheduling with multiple group members and those sorts of things, making sure everybody's on the same page. I found some also specific to graduate school, and so being an effective group member in graduate school, and how to handle conflict in graduate school. And so hopefully there's some takeaway tips that you guys have from this. So as part of an assignment, if you will, what I'd like you to do is reflect and share. So I'm going to create a discussion post, and I'd like you to share group work that went well. And so describe a group you were in from the past that went really well. based on the information you shared, or based on the information shared on these slides, why do you think it went well? Okay, so think back to the different slides I covered. Did you have clear and frequent meetings? Did you talk about your roles ahead of time and hold each other accountable? Okay, I don't know. Maybe there's something in the slides where you thought, oh yeah, that's why that group went really well. Based on that positive experience, okay, what would you recommend to others for future group work? Okay, this went really well in this particular group I was in. It just went really, really well. So this is what I would give for advice on for future group work. Okay, we all can learn from each other. Group work and being members of a team, I can think back when I was a successful group member, and I can think back to times when I was not a successful group member. Okay, and so both are beneficial to our learning. Thinking of a group that we were good at, thinking of a group that didn't go so well. Okay, so why do you think it did not go well? So then, based on the information on these slides, what could have you done differently to help the group? Okay, so this is allowing you to take responsibility for your behavior in the group. We can't always control other people, right? We can't control that so-and-so didn't come prepared or so-and-so didn't do their part, okay? But what could you have had control over to help that group differently? Maybe you could have had suggested additional meetings. Maybe you could have suggested having an earlier due date. Maybe you could have suggested rescheduling a meeting, something along those lines. So again, not pointing your finger and blaming the other group person, right? They didn't do their work, right? But again, as a group member of that group, what could have you done differently? And then what are other recommendations, advice for group work who might face similar issues? Okay, so what's some advice you have if one of your peers is in a group that's going very similar to what happened to you? What's some advice you can give for them? And so again, I want to see I'm going to have one discussion post. I want everybody to post twice. Group that went well, group that did not go well, and consider adding these bullet points. I think that will just, again, increase our awareness, and we can learn about conflict from other people, or we can learn what goes really well, right, when working in a group. All right, thank you so much for your time. Again, I hope these strategies help, and I look forward to continue working with you. Thank you.